Good evening. My name is Richard Smith, and I'm the host of Issues. Last week we talked about intercultural marriages, Part 1. We spoke to Pastor Burton Schnaum, who is the pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This week we have two guests with us, and we hope to meet them right now. Could you please tell us your name, please?
My name is Stuart Anderson.
And I'm Sandra Cook Anderson.
Thank you so much.
And yes, we're married.
Sandy, how did you two meet?
Well, God intervened in that one because there was no way that I ever saw myself coming to Bermuda. But I came here as a locum for a 3-month stint. And now 9 years later, here we are because I met this gentleman the very first day of work, and we started talking, and I say we never stopped.
Wow. Now, Sandy, what was it like growing up in your family of origin in terms of race?
Well, I'm an American, so my experience is, I think, typical of a lot of Americans in that I am in a country which is predominantly white, and in particular the place where I grew up in New Jersey was predominantly white, with probably about 2 or 3% of a black population. So our schools and our environment and our neighborhoods reflected that. So my experience and my interactions with folks that didn't look like me was very limited. And because I also grew up in the 1960s, it was very interesting. I was thinking as we were preparing for this show that one of the things that happened, of course, was a civil rights movement in the United States. And it was through the medium of television that we really started to understand more about the black experience and the prejudice and the discrimination and the horrible treatment that was going on in the black population. Because again, we were very insulated from that kind of experience in the environment that I was in.
Now, Stuart, growing up in Bermuda, what was your experience in your family of origin in terms of race?
Well, I actually had a lot of white friends and black friends. I had a lot of friends from Roger B. Chaffee. And for those of you who are old enough to remember, Roger B. Chaffee was the school on the American base that the Canadians and the Americans attended. So I had the black guys from the hoods that we played football and cricket with and went swimming with. And then I had my white friends that I either went sailing or I went fishing with. And both groups played together. So I knew both worlds, and I didn't think of anything about jumping in between worlds. Okay. It was just normal to have both things in my world.
Sandy said when she met you at work, it's a conversation that continues to now.
Absolutely.
What was the reaction of your Bermudian friends that saw you two starting to date and the relationship getting closer and closer? Stuart.
First word, smile. Then, oh. And some people said, I thought something was up. And then they said, good, you two really, really, you're a dynamic couple, great. Then they said, you belong together.
Oh, wow. So nothing, she's a white person, Stuart, what's happening? None of that, you didn't get any of that?
Didn't get that.
Okay. Now, Sandy, is your reaction similar to Stuart in terms of the way people related to you when they saw the relationship getting closer?
Well, the couple things is when you're an expat and you come here, people don't know you, they don't know your past, they don't know anything about you. And so I wasn't being watched by the people that knew me. They knew me, what was going on through email, but probably weren't aware of all the racial issues that were going on. And I think that I was also, when I met him, adjusting to the Bermudian culture. So I was an American coming to Bermuda, and then coming from a predominantly white community into Bermuda, which is a predominantly black community. So I think the issues around race were very much mixed up with also the cultural differences that were going on at the same time.
Yeah. So it might have been difficult to tell, are individuals reacting because I'm white? Are they reacting because I'm not Bermudian? So it might have been difficult to get a clear understanding in terms of what's happening. Now, since you've been married a number of years, and many of us are used to seeing you around, do you at all here in Bermuda experience any type of racism because a black man is married to a white lady?
Initially, when we got married, the thought was, oh, there goes another good black man.
Yeah.
You get that.
Yes.
But usually people wonder what's going on between the two of us. How strong is the relationship? And they see us holding hands. And I remember there's one particular grocery store that we used to attend. Whenever we went to the grocery store, people go, ah, there go the lovebirds. Or if I happened to be in the grocery store alone, they would ask, literally, where's your wife?
Yeah.
I'm like, she's over there, and everything will be fine. But we really haven't had too much of a problem outside of the initial thought that there was a waste of another good black man.
Mm-hmm.
And now when we're in the United States, that's a slightly different issue, and we could probably speak to that a little later. And the only other concern there was, is she from England? Or is she from Canada? And I would ask, well, what does it have to do with the price of tea in China? This isn't particularly relevant. Yes, she's my wife. We have a great relationship. We're happy. And people adjusted to that, and they expect to see us together.
Yeah. So let me get this. In Bermuda, it's fine. I mean, you could be two white people, two black people. It doesn't matter. It's not an issue. In the community, in the society that you move around in, it's not an issue. It's Sandy.
Well, my experience is slightly different in that as a couple, I don't think we get that. But you know, the fact that I am white and I'm a lot of my environment is black. Some people forget that I am white, and when people there are remarks that are sometimes made that are very hurtful to me because these are my people. But I don't think it's a particular of our relationship. In other words, it's just something that you deal with.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's said because you're white, not because you're a white person married to a black
Correct.
person. Okay.
Correct.
When you hear things like that, Stuart, or Sandy will come home and say, you know, I heard it, whatever. How does that affect you, or does it affect you at all?
Well, of course it affects me. I regularly find myself champion the concept that the different groups need to have intentional dialogue. The only way you can bridge some of these big canyons is to be intentional, and then you really actively want to listen. There has been a lot of resistance to that. Partially when you say the concept expat, people go, well, they don't need to be here anyway, that's all right, they can go somewhere else. But you need your expats. And that's another issue, probably not the purview for this show. And you've learned quickly that the different groups can get together quite well, but you just have to want to do it. I won't say what I want to, we won't deal with our work environment, but you see, it's quite easy for Sandy and I to get together and dialogue, and then we tell people just watch the way we get around doing things. We've learned, one, that we have to really respect each other and demonstrate to everybody that we're okay. And it's in that demonstration that people go, oh, wait a second, you actually do like each other. I can see it's almost palpable that you actually do like each other, and then everything normalizes around, or they become more tolerant. And you understand, in older groups, there's less tolerance. In the younger groups, it's not a big deal. That's a reality in Bermuda.
I have found that to be true. So the two of you do discuss issues, racial issues at home, in terms of maybe what's happening in society, or what you may have experienced, or what you may have experienced. So it's a topic that happens at your home as needed.
As needed.
Now, earlier,
Because even Jesus experienced discrimination based on where he came from. Remember, there was the question that was put, you know, what good comes from Nazareth? And the answer was, come and see.
Now, last week I asked Pastor Burton Schnall, in the terms of race, are there different experiences when he's dealing with church people as compared with people who have no religious affiliation? Have you found any difference in terms of their treatment to you, Sandy?
I would say, yeah, I would, because you have that basis of love, and I think that makes a big difference in people's lives, and that there is that, blessed is the alien, you know, the stranger. There is that sense of wanting to reach out to the people who come here, and to strangers, and to people that may not look like you. So I do find that there's more of an acceptance and a willingness to at least maybe go a little further than you normally would, to extend yourself in love and in fellowship and in the love of Christ. So yeah, I would say a little bit more.
A little bit more
Tolerance,
yes.
understanding,
Yeah.
welcoming.
Okay. Is that your experience too, Stuart?
Generally, love is the key. I found in our little intercultural team that you have to be persistent. You have to demonstrate to some of the different groups that you actually do care. And there's this concept in intercultural communication where you go out and repeatedly demonstrate to the person that, yes, I'm talking to you. And they get it, that you actually are interested in them, and then they accept that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, earlier you mentioned that your experience in Manhattan or in the States is somewhat different than your experience here in Bermuda.
Absolutely.
Could you share something with us, Stuart?
I'm referring to a study done by ABC News and NBC News, where it demonstrated that people who are non-black, i.e. white people, can get cabs.
Do you tease her sometimes, you know, because she's white? Or do you tease him? Yeah, yeah. Because when I saw that, I figured you.
Yeah, we can joke. We actually play with it. We've actually found a way to really make it work. And that's a key point. When you're an intercultural couple, you have to learn to make things work. Okay. But to answer your question, yes. Sandy has the ability to hail a cab from any part of Manhattan at will. Been to Broadway, we exit a theater, and she merely has to look at the road and the cab stop.
Oh my goodness.
I, on the other hand, can stand in the middle of the street with a big neon sign and they go past me. And we thought it was an isolated incident. We did it once, twice, 3, 4, 5. We've rented apartments in New York. It doesn't matter. As soon as she gets by the road, looks at the road, the cab stops. Doesn't matter if we're in Lower Manhattan, Upper Manhattan, it just happens. And I accept it.
Yeah. So in the States, the whole feeling and experience is different. Inside, does it make you feel different? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Because now, you know, more people may be watching you. If you walk into a store and you're walking around Stuart, you're over 6 feet, you know, 200-something pounds. Are you thinking, man, do they think I'm going to rob the place? Any of those, do you experience any of those feelings when you're in the States?
I've had quite varied experiences in the United States. First of all, I don't feel odd when Sandy and I are walking around Manhattan. I'm just aware that people know that we're there. And because the U.S. is large, people segregate. And you accept that. That's fine. But when we walk around Midtown, most times people are more concerned with where we're shopping, how we're dressed. If we seem to pass that simple test, there's a little more acceptance. And clearly there's always, at some point, someone trying to determine if you're a cracker, you know, if you're lower class. And if they determine that you're not, then they're more accepting.
Let me ask you a question. Interracial marriages, do you think to a degree it's based on socioeconomic status, the way people react to you? Now, if you're dressed, what would be termed middle class, upper middle class, as compared to somebody who may live in a poorer area of town, do you think people are reacting to you because of your socioeconomic status or because of your race?
They take the snapshot first and then work backwards. It's a little story here. I remember when I was going up to Sandy's area, Princeton, and there's an unofficial dress code there. But coincidentally, the dress code is quite similar to what we will wear to the beach here. And we went to there, and she just reminded me of some things that I shouldn't wear. But I arrived in the area and everyone just went, oh, you and her together, did a quick look at me and then went, okay. And then they began to engage me, and then when they could understand that I could speak a grammatically correct sentence and that Cindy and I were doing quite fine together as a couple, well together as a couple, things began to change and we had dialogue. Now, there's always a group of people that will just tolerate you, and you accept that. And then there are people who actually engage you, and we've developed great relationships in there. I have wonderful friends in there, absolutely do. I have people I love to death, I love to life, rather.
Sandy, your friends in the States, when you go back to visit or when you told them you were dating and married a black man, what was their reaction? Oh, we're happy for you? Or what did you do? You know?
Well, my friends, no, were very happy because, you know, Stuart is, he's a sweetie. So they could pick that up pretty quickly, and they were happy. They could see that I was happy and that he was treating me well, and that's what my friends wanted. My family, on the other hand, had a little bit of different experience. My mama grilled him pretty good.
She grilled me very well. I was well done. Extra crispy, one could say.
And now, she very much, once he passed the grilling stage, he was very much accepted and loved by my mama and my family and most of my family. My father, on the other hand, disowned me. So I...
because
I married
Yes.
Stuart.
Yes.
Because he was black.
Wow. How did that make you? I know daughters are usually very close to their fathers. My
Right.
daughter is very, very close to me. Did that kind of rip your heart apart? Or?
Oh, absolutely. I was very close to my dad. I spent a lot of time with him. And so I was very excited to come home, and we went down to South Carolina to be together as a family at a Thanksgiving, and I heard through the family that my father wasn't pleased. So I thought, well, once he met Stuart, there wouldn't be any problem. But 10 seconds into the conversation, he took me outside and said, I don't think this is going to work, and I don't believe in this. I'm disowning you. And so then I walked out of the environment, and we had a breach, and it was really through the love of Christ that I was able to reach out to my father, because I didn't talk to him for 7 years.
Is it repaired now?
It is, gently. I would say for me only. Stuart has never really had any interaction with my father at all.
Yeah. When you heard about her father's reaction.
I was there.
I
was there.
You were there.
He was there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the atomic bomb dropping in the middle of the Thanksgiving celebrations, and the first priority, of course, make sure Sandy's okay, and the family rallied around Sandy.
Oh, good. So your dad was kind of the odd man out then. The other family embraced both of you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. That's excellent.
But I understand, doing a little bit of the research, that's not unusual for a white female and a black male in the United States to have those issues with the father of the gal. So that's not an unusual experience, but it was one that was very hurtful for a long time.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we have a Heavenly Father.
Amen.
And one of the things that was so sweet was that Stuart's father really took me in as my Bermudian dad. He is now passed. But he was a little bit lighter in color too, so it was funny when we'd be walking down the halls in the hospital, they thought it was my father. But he really embraced me. Both my Bermudian mom and my Bermudian dad embraced me. So it was a very healing and helpful situation to have Stuart's family here, to be so accepting of me and to love me as a daughter.
Very good.
Thanks, Mom.
Now, Sandy, sometimes black folks will believe that the lighter complexion you are, or the closer you are to white. As a black person, the better things are for you. People are more receptive to you. Somehow you look more beautiful or more handsome. I'm sure you've heard that, and what are your thoughts about that?
Well, a very wise woman once said to me in the United States, because I used to do a lot of work on white privilege and racism and helping to support the anti-discrimination work that was going on in the United States. A wise woman said to me, she said, even if all of the white people dropped dead in the United States, discrimination would continue. Because discrimination, let's face it, it is not, it is the work of the devil. Okay, we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principality. So the devil will take whatever he can to divide you. And to, whether it's the color of your skin or the texture of your hair or, how tall you are, anything that he can get a hold of, he will try to divide humans from each other and then from humans from their relationship with God. So my thought is that people will take whatever, not people, the devil will try to divide people on obvious things like, things like appearance, and then whatever else he can get a hold of.
Now, you've mentioned several times relationship with God. In terms of intercultural, interracial marriage, do you find that maybe there are issues that cause you to increase your faith because you may have to rely more on God because of what some people may say or what some people
We
may
really
do?
learned to cleave.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That concept was, we learned that we are our best support system. And we recognized that certainly we had challenges. We were trying to find a church home. We were learning to amalgamate ourselves into a larger system. And our church doesn't have a bunch of people that look like her. So when we first met, we went to Warwick Church, and we visited several churches before we could actually find an environment that was more comfortable. And then, of course, a church is a family, so you have to grow and get acquainted with your family members, and then you have to engage. And Hamilton became a great place. Worship is a joy. I have to plug that in there. And we are now active in different roles. And of course, she's the head of intercultural ministries for the Hamilton Church.
Okay, we're going to have you tell us a little bit about that, Sandy. But listening to you, Stuart, both of you looked for a church that would be receptive to the intercultural relationship that you have. And if I'm understanding you correctly, you found some churches more open to that than other churches.
Yeah, there are some churches that are more diverse than others. And you have to accept the fact that the world church is diverse, but there are some parts that are less diverse than others. And certainly as a couple, both of you need to be happy if you want to thrive. And Hamilton eventually worked out for us. It became more dynamic.
And this Hamilton Seventh-day Adventist
Hamilton
Church.
Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Okay. Very good. And that's where you are now. And
Correct.
you are the intercultural director. What is that?
Well, I think it's very interesting. My idea was to gather the people from the back of the church because I find that's where a lot of the people who are our guest workers and our expats sit back there. And I just started to realize that there was a need to minister to this particular population. And so it is a reaching out to people who come from different countries and reaching out to people who don't look like us. And it can really evolve to any culture that is different from the one of the predominant one and from the one that we're from. So we reach out in ministry, we do friendship evangelism, we reach out in doing a lot of just praying together. One of the things we did this summer was we got t-shirts which said, "We pray for you," and we went down as a group to Harbor Nights to minister to our visitors, and because the cruise ships were in town. And just reached out in prayer. And a lot of times maybe it was just a friendly, "Hi, how are you?" But what we also found out was that many Bermudians needed to be prayed for also. So we really, it was very good for not only us, but it was good for us as well as our visitors and other other people that were here. There were many, many needs. People ran up to us many times and asked for us to pray for them.
So are you involved in that ministry?
Absolutely. I'm going to take a different slant. It was an opportunity for us to demonstrate some intercultural competence. I have to use that term there.
Intercultural competence.
Yeah, so you learned not only to speak to your own group, but you learned to speak to other groups. You learned the ways that you can speak so that the other groups could hear you. And you demonstrated that. And that's that demonstration that indicates your level of intercultural competence. And we know how fast North America is. Sandy became a master of the 45-second or the 30-second prayer. Person was walking, it's like, yeah, you can pray, just walk with me. And she would walk and pray, and then we'd meet people from Europe and say, well, we don't believe in God. But we could talk around things that they had in common, and we reached common points.
And Sandy shared with us the gentleman that she met that said, I'm German. I'm German, and I apparently didn't want to engage in any type of prayer or anything spiritual. Well, Sandy and Stuart, thank you so much for being with us. You truly have demonstrated some of the same traits that last week Pastor Burton Schnall spoke to us about. And it is interesting. While here in Bermuda, in terms of the intercultural, interracial marriage, there's very little concern or very little problems, I hear from you. But when you go to the States, when you're in the United States, especially in Manhattan, there's some differences you see. Sandy, when I go to Manhattan, I want to be with you. I need to catch a cab.
Absolutely.
I want to be with you. Thank you so much again for being with us. One of the things that I found out about intercultural marriage, I am of Jamaican birth, and my wife is Bermudian. And the first time she came to my home and met my parents, when she left, she said, Richard, I couldn't understand what they were saying. I said, well, they were speaking English. She said, well, I couldn't understand what they were saying. So even though, and my wife is black, so even though you might be of the same color, if you are of different culture, there can be some differences. She had a difficult time adjusting to some of her food, ackee and saltfish, ripe banana, some of those things. So intercultural relationship is not only black and white. You can be of the same color but of different cultures and still face some concerns. But one of the things Pastor Burton Schnall and Sandy and Stuart brought out, a relationship with Christ helps to improve and encourage wholeness and oneness. Thank you again for being with us, and we look forward for you being with us next week on another issue. Thank you.